Further ado, man, let's get started.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Let's do it.
Cool. So I'm Alair from Outdoor Outreach. As you know, I'm the communications coordinator and part-time field instructor, but I'm also a former outdoor outreach participant and leadership program graduate. I've been part of the outdoor outreach families for 4 years. It has been an incredible journey. A lot of people that I consider my mentor and my long life friend as well. Yeah, so we have a guest today. He's a photographer, which most of you might know him. He's a photographer, author, and also a speaker as well. So Chris Burkard, one of my favorite photographers as well, and I definitely look up to his work when I first started and still do. So yeah, so Chris, as you know, Outdoor Outreach is a San Diego-based youth development nonprofit that connects youth to the outdoors as a space, for them to build resilience and
Right.
also confidence in their power to make a difference.
Yeah. And they do some incredible work, man. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to connect with you. And it's interesting because I remember pretty vividly kind of, after the, I guess, sort of last couple of years, looking at, some of the bigger challenges that I think the youth face within the outdoor space, and looking for organizations to kind of align with, looking for organizations that really, I think I could relate to, being a kid who kind of grew up in a single parent home, didn't have access to the outdoors activities and whatnot, and wanting to support that with my career, with my talents, with my time, income, what have you. And my wife actually found Outdoor Outreach and was like, check out this program. They're doing awesome work. And I kind of fell in love with the effort and with what they were doing. And I think the way that they were going about it was really awesome, connecting interesting individuals and people who are passionate about these things, but also specialists, and kind of sharing everything from kind of the baseline intro of a lot of these of outdoor access, but also kind of like, I think, on the upper echelon of things too, and how people can kind of make a career in it, and how you could, I guess, dream a little bigger. That's the coolest thing for me. And so yeah, it's a pleasure to chat, man, and I'm really grateful to be able to kind of connect today. So
Yeah, definitely. It's so, like, it might seem like a just not a big deal for people to have access to the outdoors, but like for somebody like me, from my unique background, it makes a huge difference. Just being exposed to outdoors, just bring, and what I've seen in my fellow friends that went through the program is, we live in San Diego, southeast San Diego, and the beach is like 10 minutes away, but none of us swam in the ocean before, like we have people like that comes from all over the world that visit, that surf and all that kind of stuff. But we live like literally, our kids like live near the beach and never swim in the ocean. So to be able to swim and also surf, it's a huge deal, And
yeah.
I've seen my friends that went through the program, and they went rock climbing for the first time, surfing for the first time. Now they're doing it, like they're picking up the passion and pursuing that I guess dream and making a career. That it is possible to make this as a living. And also I think outdoor outreach provide really good connections outside of our organization. Like we have graduates that work in NOS and Outward Bound, and
Yeah.
I think it's incredibly impactful and very powerful in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really good point you bring up. I mean, I think that the access part of it, but not only the access, you can bring somebody to the ocean, you can bring somebody to a wall, a rock wall, Yosemite, what have you. But there's an element of insecurity that's there if there hasn't been somebody to help guide them, or somebody to help be a mentor. And I think this mentorship idea, we used to come from a lot more of a tribal community, in terms of like, that's how we grew up, right? Like, we were in these small communities. You would learn from, a brother, sister, elder, whatnot. And now, because of how our communities are based, it's so spread out. It's hard at times to even find somebody who like has those skills that you might want to explore. You want to learn how to, float down a river or raft a river. Like you got to go search that person who knows how or can show you, and I get it. Like YouTube culture is great and we can learn online, but there's nothing the same as being able to kind of like take somebody, show them the ropes figuratively and literally. And I think that's like the most important thing. That's what I really hope to advocate for. And again, coming from a background of like feeling that insecurity of for the first time, going climbing or doing these things and not knowing what I was doing. I remember not skiing until I was like in my late 20s. Just wasn't a sport that was accessible to me. It was expensive. It took a long way to drive. And having good mentorship, and that made all the difference. I think that's one of the biggest access points. And I think that what I really hope is that people kind of walk away, not necessarily from this, but just in general, like this year and these previous years, thinking about like, who can I be a mentor for? Whether this is somebody within your local community, whether this is somebody within your own family, sometimes like who could I offer experience, expertise, and an opportunity for that might not have had one. I think that's a really kind of great way to think about just a quick and easy and efficient, like way to interact with people in some way.
Yeah. And I agree too. I mean, like we run trips, right? Like we serve a lot of youth from various backgrounds. We also serve a lot of youth that come from refugees, and
wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, so and I work closely, and I myself as a refugee, and I work with like other refugees. It's a common ground, and we connect. Just like we connect on different levels. So whenever I'm on trips and stuff like that. So we provide activities, and it's surfing and all do like variety activities. It's fun, but I think we should focus more on like the outcome of the activities, right?
Yeah.
Like the various activity teach you about certain things, teach you how to helps you find your confidence, teach you how to through not giving up and overcoming fear, whatnot. But it's more of that, like you mentioned, like mentorship and pretty much like the outcome of the trip. That's what matters the most. Yeah.
You hit on something really interesting, which is this idea of like perseverance, right? Like starting and finishing something was so significant as a kid. I experienced that in Boy Scouts and other things. I didn't grow up with a father figure in my life because he passed away before I was born. So like having programs like this are so crucial. But I will say, like without a doubt, there is a lot of healing and a lot of confidence that can be built in those environments, more so than any classroom, any like stuffy office place. Like this is why it's so important for me. That's what gave me the confidence to do what I do, is that time outside. And so I just think about the fact that this is like such a critical thing to do, such a critical experience for kids to have. And like you said, it's not about whether somebody goes and they climb the wall, they climb some 5'8", or they, whatever, or they ride their bike without falling, or what, who cares? It's about where did they start and where did they end within their own personal journey, and that confidence that is created and built, because that's what we're trying to foster, right? We're trying to foster confidence building, and we're trying to foster an environment where people feel like they are in some way starting a version of themselves and finishing a slightly more evolved version of themselves. And those skills, when you take on really challenging things in life, they translate, they become really valuable. So that to me is like so powerful. Like I personally recall hardships that I've had out in nature or wilderness or whatever, something I had to overcome, something I was scared about when I'm dealing with like emotional trauma in life, which a lot of people in these situations, they deal with that more so than a lot of other ones. So like giving them the tools to gain life experience is so important.
Yeah. Thanks so much. So Chris, I'm gonna move a little bit. I'm gonna ask you some few questions.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So today, as part of our June Outdoor School Art series, we're going to talk about our work, not just about our work, but really about the access to the outdoors, like we talked about earlier, and why it's so important.
Yeah.
So question, why are the outdoors important to you, and what benefits do you gain from it?
Yeah, it's a great question. Honestly, it's hard because all I can really do is offer that answer from my perspective, which again is a privileged perspective and is one that, although I had minor hardships in my life, like I would say that the outdoors to me has always felt like a slightly safe place, right? I can't even imagine people coming to the outdoors and feeling like, oh, this is so unsafe, it's so dangerous. That's I feel for them, right? And I think for me, the first and most important thing is I hope to have everybody be able to be in the wilderness, be in nature, and feel a confidence, feel safe, right? That's not the case right now for everybody. I think that that's the future that we need to strive for. We need to strive for every skin color, every sexual preference, every type of person to feel safe in the outdoors, protected, like I would, right? Because that sort of healing, confidence, all those things we talked about, that will only occur when somebody is there and they can be vulnerable, right? Vulnerability, I think, in nature is a critical thing to be able to experience, right? That's where I would say that you start to learn more about who you are. If you're always kind of in fight or flight mode, and you can never just relax, you'll never be able to learn, you'll never be able to grow, right? And so I think, coming back to your question, this idea of like, why is nature so important? Why is outdoors so important? For me, it gave me a perspective of the world. It sort of gave me an education. It taught me things I didn't know about myself personally. As I said, I didn't grow up with that father figure. So a lot of those early experiences that I probably would have wanted to have with a dad, I had with teachers or instructors or, a Boy Scout leader or another person who cared enough to show me,
Yeah, I literally, from at least for me, outdoors, the biggest is just it reminds me of home. Being outdoor, like you mentioned, is it kind of takes you back to that primal instinct, right?
Yeah.
Shelter, food. Yeah, it reminds me so much of my home. And um, yeah, when I was my first, I think, second backpacking trip up in the Sierra, first experiencing the altitude, 8,000 feet elevation,
Yeah.
I was, that first time, I remember like vividly, like the moment I experienced it, just looking out into Mammoth and just like, wow, like just taking it in. It's like, it's a whole new world, and experiencing thunderstorm like a hail, like in my my tent, those like diamond blue tent, like a pole in the middle. And then you're like, it's like, I like those, I can recall those moments, and it has those clear. I don't know. I can't, like, to this day, it's like sometime I think about it and I can't really explain it how it makes me feel, but it definitely makes me like this sense of humbleness that I feel in myself, and just being in that environment, it just taught me like the world is huge. Like we have no control over that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, I love the presence of being there. So
I think you nailed it. Honestly, like you said it really beautifully. Like you can't describe that feeling, but that experience is so ingrained in you. And what's funny, you know, is that it often is the hardships that we remember because they cut a little deeper, and that's a good thing. Like those hardships you experience in nature, especially the ones where the outcome is good, like you remember those. If you go on a hiking trip and nothing went wrong and it was just sunny all day, like you remember the clouds rolling in, you remember the hailstorm, you remember the crappy food you ate or the mosquito bites all over your face or the blister on your foot. Those traumas, those small traumas, when they're overcome, they create like a level of confidence, like cake, like layers to a cake. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, I feel actually taller, I feel actually bigger, I feel actually like I can take up more space in this environment where I once felt very meek and very very small. It's a really awesome way of looking at it. I think you pretty much nailed it.
yeah. So yeah, so next question, what is the greatest barrier you see to young people or under-resourced groups gaining
Yeah.
access to the outdoors and outdoor sports?
I think equipment costs are a big one. and the education of how that equipment is used, right? Like, the answer is not to like go provide every person that wants to surf a brand new Channel Island surfboard, right? Because you take it out there and you break it or you'd hurt yourself, right? It's pointless. Or to provide them like a brand new top of the line mountain bike, right? It's the value is lost on that person who doesn't know. So it's a twofold thing. It's education, right? How do I use this equipment? How do I, and then also making that equipment either rentally, being able to rent it, being able to use it, being able to buy it accessible, right? And I'm not saying, and I don't think anybody should be like, well, these are free, right? But is there programs? Like I know Specialized has the Outride program. It's pretty awesome. There's a lot of bike companies that are advocating for programs like that, where you can go out, you can do ride days, you can, Outdoor Outreach has programs like that. So I think the education, which basically education comes down to the experience, right? And then also the equipment cost. Those are two barriers that I see. I mean, it's a really challenging thing because all we're trying to do is get people like satiated, like get them a little taste, because that's the thing is like, somebody like myself, I go to the ice cream store and I can try all the flavors, 31 flavors, and I can base what I like with the flavors of ice cream I like because I've tried everything, because everything was accessible to me. But when you have somebody who like all they've been able to try is, these two flavors, chocolate and vanilla, like that's a really hard way to go through life, not knowing like that, man, like, surfing might've been that thing that like brought me joy, healed me, allowed me to be in the ocean and feel safe. There's kids who like, they grow up with really traumatic experiences in water, right? Water always makes them feel trauma. And it's important to find that sport, that activity, that whatever, that experience that allows them to feel safe in that thing. That's healing. That's therapy. That's what and how nature can help us, right? And so I think in some way, those are the two things that I really look for. I think that seeing brands provide more affordable opportunities and affordable, like, base models of bikes and equipment to get kids out there. That's huge to me. The last thing I would say that's kind of it's a little more of an evolved thought when it comes to like the barriers is sometimes the parents can be a barrier, right? I heard this story a long time ago from a friend of mine who used to do kind of a similar program in Yosemite with Outdoor Outreach, taking inner city kids and people who had less access to go climbing and hiking and whatnot. And the kids were so eager, they were so excited, they were like elated to get up on this rock and explore and get up high. But some of them were really hesitant, and the reason was because they're like, well, my mom just worked 2 jobs to buy me this pair of Nikes, and now like I don't want to get them dirty because she's gonna be pissed. Like, it's a hard thing because again, this is something where culturally it's you have to be sensitive to those things. Like, can we kind of figure out and understand what each person is feeling in these environments, and do they feel confident, they feel comfortable? What can we provide to make sure it is a comfortable and confident experience? And so again, I think that it's a multifold thing. It's a multi-tiered thing, and it's complicated, to be honest.
Yeah, touching on that, barrier between parents, and at least for me, it's because growing up in a immigrant household, like being outdoors is not within our radar. It's not within my parents' radar. Like to
No.
go camping, let's go camp. We've never had like family camping, and
Yeah.
so and when I as I like grow a little bit more into my 20s, and after the program, I started to do all these outdoor activities because I love them so much. And I don't think, to tell you the truth, I don't think my parents know what I do when I go on the outdoors.
I'm sure they don't.
There are times I know there are times where I've gone like a week of backpacking, and my mom was like I'll tell them like where I'm going. Oh, I'm going camping, and then she'll like, well, she'll call me in the middle of like the week and be like, where are you at? I'm like, I'm up in the mountains. She's like, what are you doing? I thought you had you're staying like at a local campsite or with a friend's house. I'm like, yeah, I'm in the mountain. She's like, no facility. I'm like, no, it's just like you put stuff in your backpack and you carry all your stuff, your food, your gear.
Right.
When you go to the restroom, and like, all the stuff that for them it doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
Why would you? Why didn't do that? Go out and like waste all that time.
Yeah.
For them, it's more of like that stuff is more of like like a survival thing, right?
Right.
For them,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
like why do you want to do that? But it's like for me, it's more than that, it's enjoying your surrounding, but people like you're enjoying your company as well with your friends or families, and yeah. And still, I don't think my mom knows I climb. Like when I tell her, like I don't even know how to explain to her like the concept of rock climbing. Like
Yeah.
I'll show her pictures,
Well,
but I don't know
right.
how to explain
And
it.
it's also like, what she's like, why would you do that? Like, what's the point? You go up, you come down. You're like, like it's hard sometimes for people to really understand like the point of it all.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's that perceived risk, right? But
yeah.
perceived risk versus the actual risk, it's a huge difference. But yeah,
Well, and I think we're seeing a generational change. A lot of our parents, they all they knew was work, right? Like if you're from an immigrant family, it's like, man, they worked, or they would be sending money back to like, their home country, or this. Not like, it was just like there's no time for any of this. And so to kind of all of a sudden be able to be like, well, yes, I can work and I have time to do that, but I also have time to like work on me, the personal part, like what brings me joy. These are new things for many people, for a lot of cultures, right? For a lot of youth, and that's like a really significant thing. It's like trying to, like, it's not as simple. I guess what I'm saying is like for someone to be like, oh, cool, well, let's go do this. Like, your parents cool with that? But like they don't even get it. So I guess just trying to be sensitive to the fact that like for a lot of people, for a lot of households, for a lot of families, especially ones come from lower income, like this is a very new thing. To even spend money on recreational activities is a very new thing. So again, I think this is why it comes back so much to like providing that access and making sure it's possible.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, this leads us to the next questions. What do you see as the most important reason for introducing youth to and providing access to the outdoor space?
I think the most important reason, like I said, at least from my perspective, and this is limited, right, is just the confidence that's created there, right? Like you go through experiences in nature that then translate to the real world, like 9 to 5 traffic or work or your environment or whatever it is, and you become a better version of yourself. I mean, that's just the truth, right? You become what I think, what I feel is a more evolved human, a more evolved person, because you are in touch with that part of you, right? People being able to, I mean, it's been said in so many beautiful quotes from like Edward Abbey and Muir and people like that, where it's like, people come to the outdoors to have their souls refilled, right? Restored in some way. And I just don't want to understate that enough, that like truly there is no purpose to actually go out into nature. Like you could just sit here all day, like, but what would that do to you mentally? What would that do to you physically? Like there is an unexplainable value to having us be in touch with our more wild, more primitive, more primal side. And I guess what I would say is, twofold. Also, I think that there are skills out there that immediately translate over to like the skills that we need to kind of navigate through life, through a complicated world. Communication skills, communicating with ourselves, right? Learning to trust in ourselves, learning to trust our instincts. That's a really important one. And I'm sure you've experienced this too, but like, it's really hard to learn how to trust your instincts when you're in a situation where you have something like this and there's 1,000 options in front of you. Where can I eat? Where can I blah, blah, blah? When you're limited to like, well, I have what I need in my bag and that's it. And I packed this bag and it's got all my supplies. You learn to live with less. You learn to value those things you have more. You learn like very minimal, very simple skills like packing and survival and things like that. So I would say that that intuition becomes a really important thing, which you could also say is just like common sense, right? I think common sense becomes a lot more real in the outdoors. And I think it relates a lot to our daily lives, you know?
Yeah. And yeah, and then for me, I know I said like for me a lot because it is. I think it like I grew up in City Heights and it's more of like it's like not a really it's mostly like popular with like refugees, immigrants there, and the
Right.
environment it's totally different, and um, like surrounding influence and like gang life and that sort of thing, and I think for me, had I not been exposed and to the people that I know that climb and work and climb and live in a van, that's sort of like, but
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say like a climb bum, but like being exposed to that and experience that is, I think it has definitely altered my lifestyle.
Yeah.
I live differently. It promotes the like healthy stuff, healthy habits, healthy lifestyle. Exercise and diet, like good good dietary. That's
Yeah.
what. And
You learn to value different things. I mean, that's what's so challenging, right? Is that, like I said, kind of about that correlation between like the parent and the Nikes, right? Sort of thing. Is I think at a certain point, you spend enough time outdoors, your values change. Like, I want to have clothing and equipment and gear or whatever that I can take into the wilderness and they work for me, not just something that like looks good at like a club, right? Or looks good to my friends. Your opinions and I think your strength in yourself becomes so different, right? And I know that I'm making some big leaps here, but like truly it's such a different scenario where like you're able to in some way be so much more honed in on what makes you happy as opposed to like what makes others happy in an outward sense, right?
yeah. So with that being said, what message do you have for young people who wants to make a difference in their community but might not know where to start?
I would say that we have the resources now to like go everywhere and find something. I mean, guaranteed there is a community organization that is working to get kids and young adults into nature and provide opportunities. They're all over if you just spend the time and look at them. I mean, if anybody's watching this on a smartphone, I hate to say it, but you're privileged enough to be able to, to do that research on your own and find it. Like, I think that the one truth is that like when we look at what we have, our excess, right? Being able to potentially take that and gift it, give it away to somebody else. Like, I constantly think about like, if I have a bike sitting in my garage, I haven't ridden for 6 months, a year, like, do I really need it? You know, could I give it to somebody who this could bring immense joy to? I think that the one thing I would say more for not really to kids, but to like adults, like in myself, who can you be a mentor to? Like, who could you provide mentorship to? Is that through just a Zoom call like we're having right now? Or is this through like physical time? Like what can you offer up? Right. And I think the one hard thing is like, maybe there's somebody out there who's like, I just don't know a lot of, kids, or I don't know a lot of, so could you write a blog? Could you write a social media post? Could you open a gate that has been closed, right? The whole point of this is kind of the opposite of being a gatekeeper, right? Like, how can you provide, like some young kid out there might be researching like how to go to Yosemite, how to feel safe in Yosemite. Or could you write an article about that? Could you write a social media post about that? Even if it touches one person and it's a way for you to break down a barrier that's been previously built up, that's a help. And I think the one thing is it's so easy to feel like, well, I don't have a platform, like, sorry, I'm trying to get this light beam away from me. I don't have a platform like, Chris Burkard or whatever it is. Great. Like, every little voice makes a difference. And I think that's the key thing is like learning and realizing that your voice is making a difference and it's significant. And that's kind of a really critical and crucial part of this whole thing. And so I would just say that everybody can start small and then you can work up from there.
That's awesome. Well, last question, Chris. I won't keep you too long.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. I'm
So,
stoked to be able to do this, man. It's awesome.
so what scares you the most right now, and what brings you hope?
It's twofold. It's the same thing, right? What scares me the most being a dad now is the fact that like I don't want to foster an inherent fear of the unknown in my children, meaning that I don't want my fears to manifest in them because those are mine, right? That's my baggage, right? Like I want them to go out in nature and be able to just like have their own experiences, be open-minded, be scared about things and learn. And I don't want them to carry on my baggage. Like I want them to be able to approach life with open eyes and open heart, and again, not carry on an inherent fear of something that they don't need to. And that's the same thing that I hope that all the youth out there can do. Like the fact that whether it's from generational trauma, or whether it's from racism, or whether it's from a parent emitting their fears onto a child, like everybody deserves not only access to the outdoors, but they deserve the right to go there and to form their own opinions, right? This is not about me saying everybody needs this because this is what heals the world. This is saying you deserve the right to go out and form your own opinion and to have a good experience or a bad experience. Sometimes people just don't like it out there, and that's okay, right? That's all right. But how much of a bummer would it be for someone to never try because doors weren't opened to them, gear wasn't provided to them, and or a cousin or an uncle or a mom or a dad or somebody had a bad experience and then they never gave them the opportunity, right, when they asked for it. So that to me is that those are kind of my hopes for the future, and those are also my fears.
And I think right now we're in a good path of new generation, social media. I think we're in a good path of promoting outdoors, right, access. And I think for indigenous people, historically, like they're um, they're always in the outdoor, right? That's it. That's how their ancestors survive, and that's their world, and that's how you get involved. So I think we're in a good path of heading that direction. But at the same time, I think that's not the reality for all of them, everybody.
Right.
So I think we should definitely continue promoting that idea, pushing that.
Yeah. Spot on, man. Absolutely.
Chris, I can literally sit here with you and talk with you all day.
Let's do it. We should make it like a weekly or like a monthly thing where we just do a couple sessions. Like I'm hyped on that, man. Anytime.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. Thanks you so much for your time with us, Chris, and sharing us your valuable inputs. We hope to see you down here in San Diego and hopefully get you on one of our trip, or if you have time, like come to one of our events, lead the way.
I want to do a backpacking trip with you. That'd be sick. Or like do a photography course or something like that would be really fun, or something would be sweet. Or even like something up here in Central California would be kind of cool. So we should chat about it offline and figure out something rad.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely open to that. And yeah, hope to connect with you in person soon. But yeah, man, take care, and thank you so much for being here with us.
Cheers, buddy. See ya.
Yeah, bye.